What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some r/Am I the Butthole? We're jumping straight into the good stuff today, so let's get straight involved. Much love, guys. This story is from Victorious4433. Am I the arsehole for moving out when my stepsister ruined my Father's Day gift for my dad? I, female 16, live with my mum, stepdad and stepsister 18 and stepbrother 20. I lost my dad to cancer when I was 13 years old. We were very close and his death was a major loss in my life. I wasn't able to keep much of his belongings because of my stepdad's insecurities and lack of sympathy and respect for me and my dad. It's sad to say that my mum moved on relatively fast. My stepsister and I share a room together. My stepbrother has the bigger room because he's a man. And as a result, me and my stepsister are always in conflict. She wants me out during the day as she uses the room as her art studio. She recently accused me of stealing her tools and convinced her dad to get a lock, so now I'm forcefully locked out and can't get in till after a huge argument and getting my mum involved. My stepsister had an argument with her brother and ruined his game console when he was out. He came into the room quietly in the evening, stood by the door and asked me to bring him my stepsister's acrylic paint set. I asked if he got permission. He said yes, so I gave it to him and went back to study. At dinner, my stepsister came downstairs yelling that her brother had access to her room and ruined her paint set. There was a lot of yelling and arguing. Stepdad asked how my stepbrother walked into the room when it was supposed to be locked. My stepbrother admitted I helped him out and brought the paint set to him. My stepsister went off at me, called an accomplice and ran upstairs and took the gift I prepared for my dad for Father's Day. I picked up flowers I planted from our small garden that I take care of by myself, and prepared a nice wooden letter-shaped pot. Used my dad's first initial and filled it with the flowers I picked and decorated it with ribbons. It wasn't that good, but it was like a floral letter. I planned to visit his grave and put the gift there. She damaged it to pieces. It was completely ruined. I yelled at her and kept crying. Mum and stepdad gave her harsh punishment and thought it was fixable, but I was so done I called my uncle, who came and berated my mum and stepdad. Stepdad offered to fix it and punish my stepdaughter harder, but I packed my things to go with my uncle. My mum begged me to stay, but I refused and didn't respond, but she kept calling, saying she did nothing to deserve to be shunned by me and my uncle, who told the family about what happened. The family told Mum not to come visit on Father's Day and are angry with her because I moved out over this. Am I the arsehole? Now, as always, I'm very, if you ever get to hear this, I'm very sorry for your loss, but at 16 dealing with this and also a mum who's being insensitive towards your feelings, I just don't understand how people can lack such empathy and not realise what your daughter would be going through at this time. And I'm not saying like people don't get to move on with their lives, because it was 3 years, and as I always say and I always stand by, is that people grieve in different ways and move on with their lives in different ways, and I can't say you're the arsehole for dealing with it in a different way. But where stepdad is the arsehole in the situation, and mum even more so to me, is that they just have no empathy towards a 16-year-old's feelings who's lost their father, and the way they're treating her in this story as well, like she's having to be locked out of her room at certain times a day for other sister. And let's not forget about stepbrother needs the bigger room because he's a man. I mean, come on now. And then to be so insensitive to ruin a pot or this letter that has flowers and stuff that's for your father who passed away is just like, I can't forgive that lack of empathy towards another human. It's absolutely disgusting. Not the arsehole whatsoever. And again, I'm very, very sorry for your loss. And I think you're done the right thing by getting out of that situation for the time being. Narangim says, not the arsehole, your mum failed you. She failed to take your feelings into account after your dad died. Failed to stand up to her husband when he failed to respect you and your dad. Failed to protect you from his daughter and her unreasonable demands. The only thing both of them did right was punishing your stepsister for destroying the Father's Day gift you made. That isn't enough to make up for all the other crap. If you stayed, I think your stepsister would have found some way to punish you for her getting in trouble for destroying the gift you made. Stay away if you can. Yes, your mother deserves to be in trouble with the rest of the family for everything that has happened to you. And Ashes B77 says, not the arsehole. Being locked out of your own room is unacceptable. While your stepfamily is awful, it's your mum who is the real arsehole. She should be advocating and standing up for you. Being locked out and not getting to keep your dad's stuff is completely on her. I'm sure she had no problem spending or getting your stepdad to agree to keep any SS benefits she gets from you and your dad having passed away. And Passenger OK says, not the arsehole, I'm sorry that you lost your dad, I'm sorry you have an insensitive mum. If you can stay with your uncle, I would. Your mum has not considered your feelings regarding your father, and the fact that she does nothing about how your stepfather and stepsister treat you is truly awful. Keep your distance. And Yabuko God says, not the arsehole, that girl sounds absolutely horrible and needs some therapy. At least the mum and stepdad were also angry at her, but holy crap, she's 16. She knows what she did. She knows what this meant to you. She's disgusting. Also that the stepbrother or whatever needs to get talked to as well. Not the arsehole. Edit, just realised the sister is actually 18. And that's even more horrible because holy crap, an adult acting like this is horrifying and she needs some therapy and a reality check. Absolutely. Now what would you find yourself doing in this situation? Let me know in the comments below and we'll move on to the next story. And it seems the Father's Day stories are coming in because we've got another one from KFC2507 with Am I the Arsehole for walking out after I opened the gift my stepson brought me for Father's Day. I, male 37, have 2 stepkids, girl 11 and boy 16. My stepdaughter is the apple of my eye. I love her to pieces, but my stepson has a difficult personality. He never does anything with us. He never let me help with anything and keeps his distance from me. He also never tells me about his problems or achievements, and it's been difficult trying to establish a good bond with him like my stepdaughter. My wife says that's his nature, so I should stop pressuring him. Till he recently started spending time with me, but every time he'd pull a nasty prank. Like replace my shampoo or ruin my credit card or ruin my tyres/rear lights. This caused a rift between us, especially since my wife says those are pranks. But I was worried for my safety and got paranoid for getting in the car or going to the supermarket with a ruined credit card, so I kept my distance. Father's Day. I took my wife and my stepson and stepdaughter to her parents' house for breakfast. I received a beautiful gift from my stepdaughter and didn't expect my stepson to get me anything as always. But he did bring me a gift. It looked like a nice gift in a box and was beautifully wrapped and introduced. I was so excited and happy because all I was thinking of was not the gift itself, but the fact that my stepson is finally letting me be a part of his life and remembering me on Father's Day. So it meant the world to me. That was already my gift, but I couldn't wait to open it and show him my appreciation and gratitude. Well, I opened the box and saw a stinky old sock of mine that I've lost a couple of months ago placed inside. The look on my face said it all. My stepson encouraged me to show everybody what he's got me. I didn't want to, but my father-in-law took the box and pulled out the sock. He looked confused and my stepson started laughing hysterically, and so did others. It was an absolute horrible moment. I wish I could just jump out the window and run away from embarrassment. I just got up and walked out the room silently while my stepson was laughing behind. My wife came to tell me that I overreacted massively and my stepson was just messing with me, meaning it was a prank. But he embarrassed me in front of the entire family, and frankly, I don't give a shit about the gift, but what he did felt so humiliating I almost cried. She yet again said that I shouldn't have walked out like that and made it awkward since I'm the adult and should have handled this better. I left my in-laws' house and my wife and kids are still there. My wife is upset that I left and wanted to get some time alone and a good cry and remember my dad and try to keep my mind off what happened earlier. Am I the arsehole for this? No, stepson in this is an absolute arse, but an even bigger arse in this situation is your wife for enabling this behaviour and saying, yeah, this is just pranks. A ruined credit card is just a prank. Damaging your car tyres and the rear lights on your car is just a prank. And that's bloody dangerous. And for her to play this down is absolutely ridiculous, and play down your feelings as well. When I was reading that part where you was getting all excited about, the thought of getting the gift and, finally having some sort of bond with your stepson, and I was getting excited for you at that point, and then for it to come crashing down moments later is absolutely heartbreaking for you. And the bullshit that you're meant to just hide your feelings because you're the adult in the situation is ridiculous. What he's doing, that isn't a prank. You're not laughing at it. It isn't a prank. And for the wife to just turn around and say it is a prank is just It's winding me up, to be quite honest. Stepson knows you don't have a great bond with each other, and he's playing on that, and he knew that would embarrass you in front of everyone. So I'd go as far as saying that's bullying behavior, which is from a 16-year-old is concerning, and it sounds like therapy is needed of some sort, because there's obviously a lot more here that he's not telling you about, and I'm sorry that you're having to go through that too. But we'll go to the comments to see what they say. And we'll start with Pamphlet Hamlet 21 saying, "Not the arsehole. At first I was thinking he was being 16. But the more I read, I'm horrified. And your wife is enabling this by taking his side constantly and allowing it to go unpunished. The kid needs therapy. These are not pranks, and you shouldn't have to put up with this. Your wife needs to change the way she handled him, or I would be at that door." And Thrill Doctor 1 says, "Not the arsehole, and I'm sorry your wife is enabling her child to be disrespectful, mean, and a little shit." Your wife is the arsehole here. The stepson does what he is allowed to do. You need to address this with your wife, like now, and she needs to rein in her little devil. It's not cute and it's not pranks. Unless you and your wife are on the same page, things will only get worse. Perhaps it's time to walk away. Your wife doesn't respect you at all. And Samurai says, "Not the arsehole. You left a situation that was meant to embarrass you. Your stepson is a jerk. Messing with credit card and your car aren't pranks. It's malicious vandalism, and the fact that his mum doesn't say anything to him is ridiculous. If he did that stuff to anyone outside the family, he'd get reamed out if not charged with a crime for the stuff with the car. Take your time and have a sit down with your wife and tell her you aren't overreacting. She's enabling her son to be a jerk." And No Jellyfish 1208 says, "Not the arsehole. Your wife is a massive arsehole though for enabling such behaviour. Of course, not every kid needs to be happy about having a new parental figure, but he should at least respect you. Also, these pranks are not funny at all." And we'll have one more from Frogslegs12 who says, "Not the arsehole. Although, air quotes, kids will be kids, this was disrespectful. It sounds like the kid really needs a dose of reality to humble him. I may be wrong in this, but I think he needs a dose of his own medicine. Perhaps wrap a pair of his dirty boxers or underwear and give it to him for his birthday or Christmas. Yes, it's juvenile, but two can play that game. He needs to learn every action causes a reaction, and the reaction generally is something worse than the original action. And now, what would you do in this situation?" Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to the next story. And our next story comes from Morgan Loves Everybody. "Am I the arsehole for reporting the hotel's housekeeper and leaving a bad review after she refused to clean up my wife's vomit?" Yes, you're the arsehole. Whoa, slow down there, Mark. Let's just read the story first, shall we? "My wife and I were out of town getting ready to celebrate Father's Day, which is tomorrow. Anyway, my parents' house was already packed with relatives gathering for the occasion, and there was no way we're going to sleep on the floor in a house full of people, so my wife and I ended up going to a hotel in the area not too far from my parents' house. So we booked a room and spent a couple of nights there. My wife was feeling ill all day yesterday and ended up throwing up twice. Second time she couldn't get to the bathroom in time, so she threw up near the bed. She had a big dinner despite feeling sick, and well, the carpet was an absolute mess. The bedsheets caught some of her vomit as well. I immediately called the hotel's housekeeper. She was so young, around 28 to 19 years of age, to come up and clean. She took forever before finally arriving. She looked shocked upon discovering that it was vomit and that she had to clean up, and looked up at me and said, 'Ooh, gross,' and asked if I called her to clean that. I said yes. She complained that I didn't tell her she had to clean up vomit, and said she was sorry but won't come near that. I was confused. I told her she could get someone else to do it instead. She replied that if she asked others to do her job for her, then they'll hold it over her head. She then tried to hand me the tools to do it myself while she waits from a distance. I said absolutely not. She replied it was my wife's vomit, so I shouldn't react the way I did. I saw my wife looking at me. I fucking flipped out and told her it's her job that she gets paid for. I said I was going straight to the hotel manager for poor service, and she started freaking out, begging me to let it go. I told her to get out, but she kept begging about getting possibly fired this time, and said her dad won't be happy on Father's Day if she loses her job. My wife felt sorry for her and wanted to clean it up herself, but I insisted she gets rest. I spoke to the manager, who apologized and sent an older housekeeper, but I still left a review on the hotel. We checked out this morning and my brother was able to find us another hotel. My wife says she couldn't help but think about that young lady who I called the manager on for having a natural reaction to vomit that she couldn't control. I said she as a housekeeper should expect to do these kind of things. My wife thinks I was too hard on her and shouldn't have overreacted and potentially getting her fired. I couldn't help but think about what she said, so am I the arsehole? Now, I know I said at the start, yeah, you would be the arsehole, and I think I'm still standing by that. I'm not sure what the rules are around, like, housekeepers and stuff like that, and if it differs from country to country. I know in the UK that there's no way you would call a housekeeper if you puked on the floor. You'd clean that stuff up yourself. You maybe ask for some cleaning materials, but there's no way I would expect the housekeeper to come up and clean puke off the floor. Surely that's biohazard stuff anyway. You can't ask someone to do that. But I might be totally wrong. I'm not sure, but you are the arsehole to me in this situation. I remember when I was working my market research job once, and no, this is totally irrelevant to this is probably irrelevant to what I'm saying here. And I remember down in the basement, a pipe split to this building we was in, and yeah, it was the shit pipe. And let me just tell you, the floor was covered. And the manager was saying, "Oh yeah, just get some gloves and you can go down and clean it up." And I was like, hell no, I'm not cleaning that up. And there was a big argument, and this went on for a couple of days while the downstairs was stinking. And I was like, I'm not touching that. And I went home and I was doing some research, and it was against the law to request this kind of stuff. You have to get like a specialist cleaning team to come out and sort this stuff out. So that's where I'm going with this, and I think you're the arsehole. It sounded like a very entitled attitude through it as well. It just didn't feel right to me. So I'm going to stick with you're the arsehole, and we'll go to the comments and see what they say. And we'll start with Jaded Cryptographer saying, "You're the arsehole. Hotel maids are there to change sheets, vacuum and do things like that. They're not there to clean up bodily waste. She's likely not even provided with PPE. She would need to safely clean up bodily waste beyond using a toilet brush. You refusing to do the bare minimum to take care of your wife and make situations safe for the housekeeping staff makes you a huge arsehole. And then trying to get her fired on top of all that, unbelievably disgusting." Has a Great Kid says, "You're the arsehole. She's a housekeeper, not your personal maid. Your wife puked. That is not in normal scheme of things. You should have cleaned it up just as you would have at home." And Kitty Snowpants says, "You're the arsehole. Hotel housekeepers change the sheets and wipe down surfaces. They're not there for personal biohazard cleanup. You sound like you just enjoy power tripping over an employee. If you care about your wife so much, you should have cleaned it up yourself instead of subjecting her to embarrassment." And According Advice says, "You're the arsehole. It's her vomit and it's COVID-y outside still." COVID-y. An Excellent Dish says, "Does it feel good to be fucking flipping out on a teenager? Since you're asking if you're the arsehole based on how you handled the situation, then yes, you're the arsehole. Calmly calling the manager and asking for another maid to help out without dramatics would have worked fine." And we have one more from Fine Information who says, "You're the arsehole. So if your wife had shit all over the floor, would you expect housekeeping to just clean it up? Vomit, shit, blood, semen, all gross and not something someone should just have to clean up without extra training, extra wages or incentives. You sound like a real piece of work." Now, what do you guys think of this one, and what would you do in this situation? How would you have handled it if you was the housekeeper? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to another story. This next story is from In the Heights Obsessed. "Am I the arsehole for asking my neighbours to keep their kids inside at certain times?" Title is a bit confusing, but the situation is simple. I, 35 female, just moved with my husband, 43 male, and our dog, who is a pit bull mix and who has never had an actual yard to play in. We got him when we lived in an apartment, and needless to say, he's having the time of his life out there. The problem is that we have neighbours, a husband and a wife with 4 kids, all of whom are quite young, and our dog barks incessantly whenever they're in the yard at the same time. I talked to my husband and decided to ask the parents if they could prevent the children from going outside at certain times that our dog was out there, but the wife told me that it was ridiculous and that I shouldn't expect them to keep their kids inside just because our dog isn't trained. That sent me off, and I snapped at him and told him that was uncalled for and that he had to compromise a little bit. But the husband stepped in and said that he understands the predicament, but that his wife is right and I shouldn't expect them to bend over backwards just because our dog isn't trained, and then they shut the door. I want to say that I'm not the arsehole, but I'm feeling conflicted. Am I? I mean, in this one you kind of had the right approach and you did go to them and ask them, but they turned around and said, "No, your dog isn't trained," which I think, again, they're absolutely right. If your dog is not trained, that's not their fault. They shouldn't have to keep their kids inside because your dog isn't trained. And it's really that simple for me in this one. So yes, I would say you are the arsehole, but Dragon Newt says and quotes that it's ridiculous and that I shouldn't expect them to keep their kids inside just because our dog isn't trained. And then says this exactly: the kids have every right to be in their garden whenever they see fit. And you have a duty to train your dog so they can enjoy it without him barking. You're the arsehole. And Super Judy 1 says you're the arsehole. It is ridiculous and you shouldn't expect them to keep their kids inside because your dog isn't trained. So if you can hear that bell in the background, Cat just come in and decides to start going crazy. And Nera says you're the arsehole and you probably just ruined your reputation with your new neighbours who have done nothing wrong. And probably within the neighbourhood, you're that person now. Train your dog and keep him inside when their children are out. And Von Stupp says, you're the arsehole. If you don't like your dog's behaviour, you can change it or rearrange his schedule. And Moonwitch says, you're the arsehole and a huge one. I honestly can't believe you did this. What a selfish and entitled person you must be. Your dog being a nuisance to you is not their problem. Train your dog. And Jeepers Creepers 74 says, you're the arsehole. Welcome to the non-apartment world, where everyone has the right to enjoy their own property fully, so as long as they're not encroaching on the neighbour's property. Asking a neighbour to limit their use of their own back garden is a major faux pas, and yet, if your dog barks too much, you will find other neighbours calling animal control on you about the excessive barking. The better approach would have been to ask if the kids could work with you to help get your dog get used to the kiddie noises and so forth. And we'll have one more from RB1327 saying, you're the arsehole. I hesitate to call you an arsehole just for asking, but you kind of are when the ask is something like this. Plus you were rude when they didn't cooperate. They're allowed to have kids playing in their own garden. The kids are not purposely antagonizing your dog, they're just playing. And the neighbor is right, your dog needs some training if he is incessantly reacting this way. Now, what would you do if your neighbor approached you with this request? How would you react to it? Let me know your thoughts below on this story and all of today's stories as well if you care to share them. If you don't, that's absolutely fine as well. Thank you so much for your love, time and support towards the channel. It means the absolute world to me. You're just amazing for what you do, and thank you. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.